Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today, man, I'm going to be covering one of probably the most honestly disturbing and disgusting things I've really ever seen somebody online take place in. I mean, take part in, whatever, right? Like, I don't understand what would ever lead somebody to even want to do something like this. I'm not totally sure, but I mean, it's just a very clear instance of how the world is just such a really disturbing and dark place sometimes. I mean, it really is tragic that stuff like this happens, and there's really not even any confirmation on whether or not the people responsible for this man dying are even gonna actually face anything for this. So, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back, and today, unfortunately, we are going to be talking about the Inquisitor ghost situation. I'm sure some of you may have already heard about this, especially if you're kind of more in touch with the TikTok community, if that makes sense. People on Twitter started asking me to talk about this and cover it, right? And at first, right, people were just saying like, oh, hey, you should cover this situation where this guy committed suicide on TikTok Live and all this like horrible, sad details about this, right? And I immediately was just like, I don't really think that's something I want to cover. But dude, when you hear the actual truth of what went down in the whole Inquisitor situation here, man, it is genuinely one of the most like shocking and sad things I have ever seen happen to a content creator. So, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Inquisitor Ghost, or Inquisitor 3, as a lot of people know him, was a TikTok cosplayer who frequented Call of Duty characters, right? So he would basically make content online, particularly on TikTok, of him just like dressing up like, for instance, Ghost from Call of Duty, right? Doing cosplays and stuff. So he gained a following doing stuff like that, right? And that was, I guess, like his passion around his content and everything, was doing these cosplay videos and whatnot, right? So there's three people in particular throughout this whole situation right now that are really more or less responsible for all of this happening, right? So there's a 20-year-old woman, or the 20-year-old boyfriend now of the minor in question who caused all this. I know this is confusing. So the three people, there's a minor, her older boyfriend, and then an older woman. The older boyfriend is 20. I think the older woman is also 20, and the minor is 17 years old, right? And for whatever reason, these people don't or didn't like Inquisitor in this whole thing, and in particular, the 20-year-old boyfriend named Tito in this whole situation. Tito, I guess, is really the one who kind of spearheaded this, because back in like September, they first started trying to catch Inquisitor up and get him canceled and whatnot, and they tried to basically ruin his career, right? So Inquisitor had minors do not interact in his bio and whatnot, and this 17-year-old girl then, for the first time, texts him on Discord and shit, saying things like, oh, you should marry me, I like you, and all these other things, you should date me, and like basically trying to get his attention, right? And trying to, at this point, get him to say something and slip up and, you know, say, oh, you're hot or whatever, so that they can, of course, screenshot that out of context and say that this cosplayer was sexting or grooming a minor or whatever, and that they could ruin his career. That was what they were attempting to do. And this was something that was planned between Tito and his younger minor girlfriend in this whole thing, right? So they first try this through Discord back in September, and it actually doesn't work because Inquisitor actually responds that he's not interested. He doesn't want to talk to this girl. He's not interested in trying to learn about her or anything. And at this time, even though she's 17, she tells Inquisitor that she's not a minor in the text messages to try and bait him into like actually taking interest, because, you know, oh, now he's confirming it's an adult or whatever, right? But he's still not interested, so he doesn't take the bait that they're trying to put out there, right? So realizing they failed at catching him up and trying to ruin his career and take shit out of context to ruin him, they take it a step further and continue even deeper meticulous planning in this entire situation. And the reason I'm not showing screenshots, I'm not showing TikToks, anything like that, right, is because there's a lot of shit said in the messages. There's a lot of things said in the messages that I'm honestly worried might get the video completely nuked by YouTube, which would prevent this from even really going anywhere. And then at that point, like, how can you spread awareness about this if YouTube's taking down the video because they're taking issue with one or two little things said here and there, right? So if you really want to find the messages, you can, but there is a lot of very disturbing and disgusting planning. There's also, later on, we'll talk more about this, the video of Inquisitor committing unaliving himself on TikTok Live. that's widely circulating. I just don't want to put any of that stuff in the video just so the video doesn't get smacked. But you can find these resources if you want to. So after their first attempt to basically lie about Inquisitor being a pedophile on the internet, they continue planning. And the next step of planning, the next phase that they come up with here, is for this 17-year-old girl who is trying to get him canceled, right? For her to approach him and, you know, hey, I'll do some editing work for you, right? Keep in mind, the Inquisitor, he makes a lot of cosplay content, whatnot. So the idea of him hiring an editor to help him, you know, expand his content production, maybe even upgrade the quality of his videos and whatnot, that makes sense, right? That makes sense for a lot of creators. And so this time around, this one worked. This is how this whole thing happened. So she ends up doing these videos or whatnot for Inquisitor over a few weeks. And obviously, this is no longer September. It's moving into October now. And the situation kind of really reaches the critical point when I guess this girl, Minor, who is lying to Inquisitor about her age, edits a really good clip for him, right? And he gets really excited, and he says something that I, as a creator, can vouch is something that creators would say in a situation like this, right? He ends up telling her that he loves her and that he wants to marry her. Obviously, he's not being legitimate, I want to marry you, I love you. He's just saying that because he's happy about how good the edit was. He was just honestly being nice. He was trying to be fucking nice. He was trying to be complimentary. He thought that he was doing a good thing to someone who he could trust, right? Well, of course, these messages can be taken out of context, and that's exactly what these people now did, right? Now that this minor, who once again has throughout this whole thing lied about her age, and her older boyfriend, and their other co-conspirator, another woman in this whole thing, now that they have these messages, they can put them out of context and make it seem like, of course, this dude is just like texting children talking about how much he loves them and wants to marry them, right? And so these false allegations, they finally have some, quote, credibility now because they finally got the falsified evidence that they really kind of needed to make this whole thing actually fucking go nuclear like they wanted to. And keep in mind, they weren't actually legitimately trying to catch him on anything. It wasn't like they were looking for somebody or like trying to actually solve a problem. This was all fabricated and manufactured intentionally so that it could be spun out of context to ruin this guy's career. And to be honest with you, I'm still struggling to understand exactly why they would want to fuck this guy's career up anyway. Like, the guy makes some of the most innocent content you can possibly make, you know what I mean? It's not like, I'm not saying obviously that there's really any situation in which this is acceptable to do, in which people should behave that kind of way and falsify shit, but you would think it would happen more to like a creator who's controversial, like somebody who gives controversial takes or like is controversial for some other reason. You would think that people would want to do that to those kinds of people, not some guy making fucking Call of Duty cosplay videos minding his own business. Now, obviously, these are some pretty serious allegations to levy, and unfortunately, even Inquisitor eventually started to kind of catch on to what was happening because over the weeks while they were editing for him, they were screenshotting these messages and like fucking being like falsely flirty, I guess is the best way to put it, to like try and coax him into making like out of context like comments and whatnot so that they could screenshot. And he caught on to this because there were screenshots going around of these people calling him a pedophile and whatnot. He started catching on to the fact that this quote unquote editor was just trying to catch him up and get him in trouble. And so eventually he tells her to go fuck herself, get a life, you know, don't text me anymore, I'm done dealing with this. And then that's of course when all of the out of context messages get dumped online. This 17-year-old girl who's been lying about her age to try and paint this guy as a fucking pedophile hits the internet with her allegations with her older boyfriend, which is really ironic because like you're 20 years old dating a 17-year-old, but you're trying to cook this fucking 23-year-old for like flirting with someone he thinks is a grown adult. I don't know, seems pretty weird to me. But anyway, they start publishing all this shit and start literally slandering this guy and lying about him, making it out like he was being some sort of predator, and the internet does what the internet does. They instantaneously believed this girl because in most people's mind, no sane, rational, decent human being would ever lie about some shit like this, and we all would like to imagine, right, that this isn't something someone would stoop that low to. Unfortunately, people do stoop that low, and this is an instance of that. And as the allegations started growing larger and larger and wilder, Inquisitor 3 did, I guess, what he thought was the only way out, and he booted up an Instagram Live and hung himself on Instagram, or not Instagram, on TikTok Live. So his followers pretty much watched this guy take his own life over false allegations that a child and two adults came up with because I don't know, they didn't like the guy, they didn't like his content. I don't even really know. I don't know if we even know what their actual initial issue with him was for them to even want to take action, like for them to want to even target him in the first place, right? Because, like I said, what the fuck could a cosplayer have realistically done to garner someone going out of their way to do something like this? And obviously, him taking his own life has gone viral. It's pretty shitty. There are bot accounts on Twitter that are spamming links to the video of this guy committing suicide. It's all over Twitter, the video itself, surrounding moments of it and whatnot. And, I mean, it's a fucking tragic case. This guy took his own life over false allegations. Now, of course, you know, the people responsible for this, which one of them is a child, they have issued responses where they've tried to pretend that they were, quote-unquote, calling this guy out for some sort of inappropriate behavior. They are completely lying through their fucking teeth, and all of the texts prove it. So a shit ton of their texts have been dumped, which prove that they were literally masterminding false allegations and going out of their way to falsify the allegations against him. They were not acting in good faith. They were not acting because they thought that he was a weirdo. They falsified information and got gotcha moments where they took shit out of context because they knew that that's what they could do after their first attempt to ruin his life didn't work out for them. So it's led to this online conversation about should children face, you know, legal repercussions for their actions online and in real life. And in my opinion, everyone involved in this situation should be sent to jail for the rest of their fucking life, with no chance of parole. They should all go to jail forever. There should never be another daylight of fucking freedom for them again. They should never see another sunrise as free men and women ever again. I mean, first off, two of the people involved in masterminding all of this and planning it were adults, so they have absolutely no excuse. These were grown fucking adults who knew absolutely full and well what they were doing. Now, the minor was a 17-year-old, which to me, I mean, you're a year away from being a full-grown adult. You're old enough to know what you're doing. And if you're old enough to sit there and help create a false narrative and help create false allegations against somebody and falsify evidence to the point that they take their own lives, you're old enough to sit in that fucking jail cell for the rest of your life while Big Broody or whoever is in there taking your fucking prison pocket from you. That's just kind of the way that it is, you know what I mean? If you don't want to do that time, you don't want to sit in there in jail for the rest of your life eating fucking pudding off of a tray and sleeping on a concrete bed, maybe don't fucking goad people into committing suicide by creating these wild false allegations about them and then also falsifying proof to try and back it up, right? Like, I don't know, enjoy that pudding off the tray and concrete bed for the rest of your fucking life in jail. I don't know. But it's just, it's wild because situations like this just show you these people, even if they're minors, right? Like, oh, that girl's a minor. She didn't know what she was doing. Bullshit. People unironically want 16-year-olds to have the right to vote for president and like vote in elections, and also don't want them to be able to face charges for making someone commit suicide by ruining their life with false allegations that they created. I don't know, man. It just seems pretty fucking dumb to me. Like, everyone involved in this knew what they were doing and should face consequences. And I mean, I'm one of them people too. I'm a little spiritual about it too, man. Like, karma's gonna get your ass regardless, bro. You could sit in that jail cell forever. That doesn't mean karma's on its way, right? Because the real fact about life that people oftentimes forget, karma is a bitch. And yeah, she does not forget. It doesn't matter how much time passes. It doesn't matter how much reckoning comes your way. Karma's gonna get your ass for what you owe, right? Like, I don't even understand why something like this is even possible, man. Like, who in their fucking, who would even think to do this? It just, like, these have to be the most deprived, just insane people in society to even consider this to be, like, a reasonable possibility or, like, something reasonable to do to someone. I don't know, man, but just a fucking tragic situation. So, with that being said, though, thank you guys for watching. Rest in peace to Inquisitor. I mean, this situation's just fucking completely baffling altogether. The fact that people defend them, people do shit like this, you know, and it's unfortunate because these are the types of situations that make people not believe the real allegations, right? Like, there are genuinely people out there who are doing unspeakable, just horrible things to one another, and people speaking out about that and trying to bring real awareness to those problems are now probably going to be second guessed by a lot more people because of situations like this. It's fucking terrible. So anyway, with that being said, this is Optimus saying rest in peace to Inquisitor and signing out.